It is finally time to put the 90s 252 stroke back together. Crank set out and balanced, replaced all the bearings, piston and rings. Kind of came back worried that this was going to take a while. What do I have to do? There's some really big scoring in the pistons right here. I spoke a little too soon. Things kind of kicked my ass. Should be home free. Fill this thing up with fluid and then fire it up. I'm sure that's going to get me pretty excited to go ride. It went together a lot harder than I anticipated. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're at the shop today because it is finally time to put the 90s 252 stroke back together. If you guys don't remember, we took this bike out to LACR to shake it down after I just rebuilt it, and I didn't touch the engine, and unfortunately it was really down on power. Turns out the valve wasn't working right, so it was like super flat. Like it felt like a 125 with no power at all. And I was told that these engines are actually better than the 02 252 strokes. I don't know how true that is, but I heard that these things rip. So needless to say, I was a little disappointed when the power was super flat. Luckily, we had our buddy Steve out there who I met on that day. I dropped the engine off with him. He completely went through this thing. So he had the crank set out and balanced, replaced all the bearings, piston and rings. This thing is completely freshened up. The last thing we got to do is put oil in it and replace one of these gaskets. We're gonna throw this thing back in the chassis today, throw oil in it, throw coolant in it, start it up, see how it runs, and then get it ready for its next track day, which will be in the next video. I was kind of in a hurry when I took the engine out of it. I did it one morning before I headed over to the office at Thrashin and just didn't have time to clean it up. I'm gonna go ahead and set up the pressure washer. We're gonna clean this bike. I took the 25 out recently, so I'm gonna wash up this thing and then I'll be a nice friend and clean Jesse's bike too. Go set that stuff up, get these bikes cleaned up, and we'll dive into reassembling the 90s 252 stroke. I also wanted to mention that I haven't been very active on like the merch side of things. I do have a bunch of merch left over from when we were doing sales on the website, so putting all this stuff up for super cheap. So we're gonna do t-shirts for $5, hoodies for 10, and then the bar bags for 10 also. All these will be available on SealySpeedFactory.com, so go check them out. Gary Beer is gonna be super cheap, and we're gonna work on getting some new merch here in the future. All right, guys, we got all three bikes cleaned up. I was kind of bummed that I didn't wash it before I took the engine out, but it was kind of nice getting in all the like nooks and crannies, like really cleaning up the frame. Obviously had to like tape up a lot of the electrical and block off the airbox, but this thing's ready to go back together. I put the tank back on just for the thumbnail, but I'm gonna pull that back off. I think if I remember right, we disconnect the top of the subframe, kind of lean it back to give us a little bit more room. I think because of the air boot, it's easier to put the engine in, put the carburetor on, and then put the air boot on when we raise the subframe back up. I think I'm gonna start there. I like kind of came back worried that this was gonna take a while, but once we get the engine in, the carburetor connected, and then the subframe back on, it's really only like, what do I have to do? Just put the radiators back on, and then that's pretty much it. These things are so simple. Like I'm always kind of overwhelmed when it's apart because I know it's gonna be a lot of work, but then it ends up not being that much. So all right, I'm gonna throw this thing on a tripod. We're gonna remove the subframe, get the engine back in, kind of piece this thing back together as we go. All right, one thing before we hop into this, I totally forgot. We gotta put this reed gasket. I think it goes between these two because this looks fresh. This is kind of just a band-aid to fix it for now. I would like to upgrade the reed system in this, maybe with a V-Force or something like that. Also, forgot to mention earlier in the video, all the parts that I put in this bike were kindly given to me by the guys over at motorsport.com. I personally shop there for everything when I'm building a bike. This isn't a sponsored ad or anything like that, but I love those guys. I've worked with them in the past. Super easy to deal with. Customer service is great. I reached out to them because I was confused on some of the parts that I needed for this bike, and they said they were gonna help me out. So awesome. Usually I'm buying stuff from them. I like the people over there, great company, great people that work over there. So very happy to have them part of this build. Put this gasket in real quick, and then we'll start tearing this apart to put this back together. Not gonna lie, I spoke a little too soon. Things kind of kicked my ass. The carburetor, getting the carb onto the boot, onto that boot that goes to the airbox. It's not as easy as I remember. A lot easier coming off than it is going on. Had to disconnect the subframe, kind of wiggle it forward, connect this one first, and then connect this one. I did it backwards first. We got it connected. Last thing to do is tighten everything up. Throw the top of the carburetor back on as well as the throttle. So we'll get that on, and then probably, I think, kind of route some of the electrical and then probably the radiator tank, put the chain back on, should be home free. It's come together nicely, but fighting me a little bit, so thought I'd update you guys real quick. My goal for the day is to get this thing completely buttoned back up, have it started, and then take it out to the track for a little comparison test. Continue buttoning this thing up, and then hopefully by the end of this video, have it fired up and cruise around the parking lot a little bit. Also, side note, I totally forget if these go that direction and then nuts are on that side. Same thing with the engine mounts. Kind of forgot that. I don't know if it really matters. If you guys know, leave a comment. I can always flip them around really quick. So I've gotten a little bit of work done off camera, just some of the boring stuff. I put the radiators back on, connected the hoses, put the shrouds back on, got the carburetor all situated. I did need to loosen this up. I'm not sure if that was on camera or not, to run the throttle cable through there. We got the clutch cable back on. Works connection, when they sent me this lever setup, which fixed the issues I was having, which I actually might get another clutch cable because I had to modify this one to work with the stock setup. It almost works too good now. There's almost too much play. So stoked on that. I still need to tighten that. They also sent me some fresh frame guards. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and throw these on right now. See, these are the old ones. They're all scratched up. Brand new ones. They also sent some pretty cool stickers. I think we'll actually slap one of these up here to show our support. Background, works connection. Thank you guys. What else? Oh, I wanted to show this because Steve handed this stuff off to me. This is all the engine parts that he took out. As you can see, there's some really big scoring in the pistons right here. Even if this thing was running properly with the, I forget what the valve's called, that like switches from low end to top end power. The power valve, that's what it's called. When the power valve, even if it was working correctly, this bike probably was on its way out. So stoked to have a fresh motor in this. Also, we had these, you can hear those sound terrible. Those were the crank bearings, I believe. All that's fresh, new clutch. Not only ready to rip, but it's going to last me a long time now, which I'm stoked, because it'd be kind of scary. If I didn't know what was going on in the internals, I always hate that. Like every bike that I get, I try to, if it's not new, try to go through the engine, or have the engine gone through, I should say, because I don't know what I'm doing. But thankful for Steve. Thankful that he had the time and the ability to rebuild this thing for me. Really, I just gotta do some minor things to adjust this throttle a little bit. But throw the tank on, fill it with fluids. Luckily, we still have some gas mixed in there because it's getting late right now. I don't think I have time to go to the gas station. We're gonna add a quart of oil, fill this thing up with fluid, and then fire it up. I'm sure that's gonna get me pretty excited to go ride this thing. Bike is 95% of the way there. Radiators, tank, pipe, everything's back on. Honestly, it went together a lot harder than I anticipated. I spoke too soon earlier in the video, but oh well. Last things to do are put the chain back on. We got the master link in the drawer, and then throw the seat on. So let's get into it and go fire this thing up. All right, guys, it's completely dark outside now. This took way longer than I thought. We're on the bike. Let's see if we can get it to start. Hopefully I plugged everything in correctly. Also, didn't put the seat on correctly, but that's fine for now. Sounds so much better. Sounds so good. It has been a long day. Like I mentioned, this was a lot more work than I thought. Still got to do a little bolt check before we take this thing out. Other than that, it should be ready to rip. I'm so excited about how it sounds, how much the power comes on. I haven't actually, gotten out of first gear and really ripped it, but that'll come next video. Tune in next week where we go take this thing for a rip. We got a little bit of a surprise planned, but other than that, thank you guys for tuning in. If you've made it this far, don't forget SealySpeedFactory.com. We're going to be having these for sale all week long. Pick yours up, and then we're going to re-up merch later. Like I said before, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in the next one. Later.